This is Dateline News and Conversation. My guest tonight has become a good friend and a colleague, Blaz Kavcic. Blaz, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Regis. Nice to be
All right,
here.
this is going to be a delicate topic tonight.
Yep.
I think you and I know each other pretty well, and how we feel about a lot of the larger geopolitical events and issues. Now, President Putin and President Xi finished their 2-day summit with a major declaration, which I read it, the Chinese version. I translated it, but it was the first version that I could find. And on the one hand, Blaz, it sounded so wonderful and hopeful about a future world based on peace, the sovereignty of all nations, collaboration, development, etc., etc. But tucked away in there were some phrases that caused me to wonder what was going on. These were just two or three. One, they expressed a commitment to the United Nations 2030 agenda. We've talked about that. I want to know in detail what this is really about and why you and I both have some reservations. They talked about a commitment to the World Health Organization. And we both know what the World Health Organization and the American Center for Disease Control did with the pandemic in 2020. They expressed their commitment to sustainable development, digital currencies, the rapid development of artificial intelligence, and technocracy. Blaz, let's start at the top. You and I both feel somewhat hopeful, but somewhat skeptical about what is really going on. Explain it to me.
My general attitude towards Russia and China is one of respect and appreciation of the achievements of those two countries during the last decades for their citizens. Russia has risen again from a very sad state in the 90s, and China has risen more than 500 million people from poverty during last decades. In international affairs, the two countries are playing predominantly rational and constructive role. And it's a great thing that those two great world powers came together, and we should celebrate this coming together and their strategic alliance. But we have to analyze the background where mankind finds itself today. Where are we? People just don't realize that we are in a very accelerated epoch of humanity, and also existentially critical epoch. Rand Corporation just recently, 2020, writes about cognitive warfare, noosphere, noopolitik, mindware against domestic public, thought scripting, framing, brainboxing, fragmented disarray. Now, what does it all mean? Is it just science, or is it very complex tooling to control the world population? We have to go a little bit into strategic elements of this situation of today. And paradoxically, our grandparents, Regis, have been born into a world without electricity, plastic, without internal combustion engines, without telecommunications, without airplanes, without diesel boats. But we live with our grandchildren in a more and more digitally transformed life. At the core of the system we live in is not a constitution aimed at pursuit of happiness, but compound interest. Now, global situation in the world in spring 2024 can be well illustrated by the stark contrast of the statements of top world politicians and the reality on the ground we can all see. We see no evidence of genocide in Gaza, they say. We only promote democracy, they say. We are initiating and fighting wars just to make you safe and sound, they say. We see no chemicals sprayed in the skies, they say. We will make you well by eliminating the last shreds of national sovereignty in your constitutions by WHO pandemic treaty to be signed end of May, they say. So, sincerity. How sincere are the global decision makers and how sincere are we? There was a song back in 1972 in Slovenia about sincerity. May I wake up one day among sincere people, the lady sang. A love song, but also a social quest. Looking back, we can now better see that Slovenia and Yugoslavia between 1945 and 1991 were a global social experiment laboratory, much like Israel, Gaza, Ukraine, Singapore, Baltic states today. The Yugoslav experiment with self-management socialism is reflected today within Agenda 2030 generated projects like DAOs, meaning decentralized autonomous organizations. Global strategists have been involved in developing Yugoslav self-management socialist utopia, John Galbraith among them. And John Galbraith was a member of probably the most influential triad of the last decades, together with Heinz Alfred Kissinger and Herman Kahn. A lot of globally relevant phenomena have been generated in this part of the world, Balkans and neighboring lands. This is a border between Ottoman and Habsburg empires for hundreds of years. A dynamic and at times explosive mix of nations, cultures, religions, birthplace of Nikola Tesla, igniting the war of three cousins through spectacle of assassination of Prince Ferdinand. This event was then also called World War I. In the 70s, there was a sort of communist counter-revolution taking place in Yugoslavia. Communist counter-revolution, on the surface a battle against pro-Western liberalism. What we can understand today much better is that it was just different factions of technocracy performing a spectacle and fighting for better positioning with global powers. But we have to be sincere to admit that. Now, when recently listening to South African minister at the Faculty of Humanities, Johannesburg, I ask myself how sincere she is and how sincere are the initiatives of South Africa against the genocide in Gaza. Any decent person probably welcomes the initiative, but does the initiative address the systemic causes of Gaza genocide? Western world initiated wars from 1914 to 1945 have killed more than 120 million people and devastated lives of billions. Even during often mentioned peaceful 100 years, from 1815 to 1914, there were hundreds of wars fought around the world, all initiated by the few and suffered by the many. Any initiative not addressing Agenda 2030 as a proclamation of war against humanity and nature is not sincere enough to help us correctly understand what is really going on, what are the causes, what are the trends, and where we should look for a path of survival. I was now invited second time to Chisinau Forum, and I thank the organizers. This is anti-globalist forum, and it is refreshing to see some of distinct colleagues of this forum who expose the threat of globalism spreading through the multipolarity concept. I'm a supporter of multipolarity, and as such, I would also like to see main powers within multipolar initiative developing a clear rejection of Agenda 2030. It probably requires a great deal of sincerity, knowledge, independence, and resolution to talk critically about endeavors of Russia and China, as we predominantly can see those two countries fighting against imperialism. But we have to ask ourselves, are we sincere enough to publicly proclaim that globalists are systematically poisoning, robbing, and killing us, the people? Are we sincere enough to stop ignoring the obvious? Stop ignoring the obvious is more difficult than one would think. Start believing your own eyes, and common sense is today a revolutionary act, and it creates emotional pain. And as you and I very well know, it also creates problems in family circle, in circle of friends. It's a very, very difficult situation. If we want to approach better understanding of what is really going on, we should probably avoid discussing and fighting based on the premises imposed on us through many different channels. Except fighting for socialism or capitalism, one religion against the other, one race against the other, one culture against the other, we are objectively confronted with complex social phenomena like war. What is war? Religion, technology, culture, terrorism, corruption, debt, inflation, to name just a few of categories. And we are flooded then with mainstream and even alternative explanations and solutions. Mostly, we are dealing with false flag operations, wrong causes, wrong cures. The question is, Regis, can we realistically expect to be successful in finding correct answers and solutions, accepting the dogmatic fetters constructed and imposed on us by the globalists? I have initially mentioned the paper of Rand Corporation, where it explains the tools of how to segment people and shut the people into isolated boxes and create the impression that something is going on. So thinkers of today, whom we listen, but who remained fettered within one or more of these globalist dogmas, cannot come to the fair assessment of what is going on, what are the real causes of events, and where human civilization is headed. This is why I propose a multidisciplinary approach to the analysis of paradigmatic question: what is really going on and what to do? And there is a vast base of knowledge available today to us, historical and new knowledge. The main problem is putting things into context and avoiding the traps of corrupt science which is dominating globally. In a very abbreviated way, we are dealing here and today with four main dogmas of modern imperialism: democracy, money, CO2, and virus. And all of the discussions I follow all over the world forget about the mainstream, but let's talk about the alternative channels. All are fettered, at least in one, or usually in all, or in more of these globalist dogmas. And even the strategic alliance of Russia and China avoids a clear definition of what is money. They're talking a lot about monetary questions, and I will discuss it a little bit later. But these are the main four dogmas, and I don't think we can come to solution for humanity if we accept these dogmas and not address them. Because we have to understand that no decision in the world today is taken outside the dominating impact of the listed dogmas. And nothing happens in the human society without decisions. If the system of institutions and motivations does not change, there will be no change in decisions, just variations in narratives. So I have explained in enough detail and with all my sincerity the basics of four dogmas and multidisciplinary approach at Chisinau Forum last year, and Regis, you have given a lot of attention to these topics in a series of talks we had on your channel. Thank you very much again. But it still remains unclear. And I would like to draw your attention of our listeners this time to some monetary dilemmas and strategies of the BRICS Plus movement. We hear statements in support of new alternative global reserve currency, ditching the dollar, backing the reserve currency with gold, putting it on digital platform like blockchain or similar. My sincere warning about such statements is that they are proving that spectacles in Ukraine, West Asia, potentially Taiwan, Kosovo, are just sideshows to hide the Agenda 2030 being robustly implemented within the BRICS Plus group. Or should we believe that Agenda 2030 is good for us? Or there are maybe good and bad variants of Agenda 2030? I do not think so. Now, one of the most influential sociologists, Karl Polanyi, has explained 80 years ago that it would be catastrophic for the humanity not to understand correctly the three crucial categories: labor, land, and money. Labor, land, and money. He showed that these categories, in essence, are not commodities, but have a different nature. Today, however, we are exactly in a situation Polanyi was warning the world about. Wrong understanding of money is the mother of all dogmas. This is because privatized and globally monopolized emitting of money makes devastating imperial projects possible. So what is wrong with golden-backed currency and understanding excessive printing of money, which we hear as the proclaimed problem? The neoliberal project wasn't just pursued at the national level, but at the international one too, through the creation of the gold standard which was an attempt to extend the logic of the allegedly self-regulating, but actually enforced market to the economic relations between countries. This was an early globalist attempt to marginalize the role of nation states and their citizens with it in the management of economic affairs. The gold standard effectively subordinated national economic policies to the inflexible rules of the global economy. It also served as very effective tool to discipline labor. Neoliberals such as Hayek, von Mises, were aware that the self-regulating market was a myth. They were not crazy. Their aim was not to liberate markets, but to encase them, to inoculate capitalism against the threat of democracy, by using the state to artificially separate the economic from the political. In this sense, market liberalism can be considered a political project as much as an economic one, a response to the entrance of the masses into the political arena from the late 19th century as a result of the extension of universal suffrage, a development most militant liberals of the time were vehemently opposed to. Now, this project wasn't pursued at the national level, but at the international one too, through the creation of the gold standard, which was an attempt to extend the logic of allegedly self-regulating market to the economic relations between countries. This, as I said, was early globalist attempt, and it also shielded the economic realm from the democratic pressures which I mentioned before. However, the gold standard imposed such massive costs on societies in the form of destructive deflationary policies that the tensions created by the system eventually caused the implosion of it. First, we saw the collapse of the international order in 1914, and then again following the Great Depression. The latter prompted the biggest anti-liberal counter-movement the world had ever seen, as nations sought different ways to protect themselves from destructive effects of the global so-called self-regulating economy, now including embracing fascism. In this sense, according to Polanyi, the Second World War was a direct consequence of an attempt to organize the global economy on the basis of market liberalism. Now, about the gold. Gold should be understood just as one of the commodities, probably advisable asset within national, corporate, or private portfolios, just like silver or some other traditionally established commodity. The only real backing of the currency is harmonically functioning national economy, where goods and services are being created to cover the real needs of citizens. And this spirit, this understanding of money is absent from the discussions and agreements within BRICS Plus. Now, the really crucial and pressing monetary question is monetary sovereignty of national states. No sound national money, no sound solution for international trade and investment. Purchasing power should not be printed or electronically created, but created in real terms. Printing of money or electronic emitting of it as such is not a problem. It is just a technical fact. The real problem is that the national states, including the USA, are not emitting money themselves, which would be practically free of charge for the citizens, but needlessly borrow money from private lenders like Fed. Why the prominent economists with honorable exceptions of Michael Hudson and very few other heterodox economists, do not pose the question, where does the money which the global money lenders lend to national states come from? It is not based on the real value created, but on fiction and manipulation. What I would propose to BRICS Plus is development of modern version of a multilateral clearing, similar to what was functioning among Yugoslavia and Soviet bloc countries decades ago. So far, there is a comparative advantage of the Russian and Chinese monetary system against the US, EU, and others. Russian and Chinese systems are not yet so deeply financialized, which made it possible to overcome sanctions better, increase the military production faster, and more efficiently absorb a giant speculation bubble like Evergrande liquidation relatively smoothly. This would be a vast strategic strength within a SWOT analysis, but there is also strategic weakness and threat. Russia and China are completely subjugated to Agenda 2030. World Bank has strong influence on all BRICS plus central banks. In monetary area, this could mean that BRICS Plus will just leapfrog the phase of classical money financialization and implement even deeper crypto financialization of their economies and societies. So this would be explanation of how I see in positive and in negative terms latest events in the BRICS Plus world.
Okay, Blaz. Thank you for that very deep and comprehensive overview of what we're looking at. But I have to ask you this. It's still not clear to millions of people around the world. Can you state simply and clearly, in your opinion, what the UN Agenda 2030 is?
Well, it has been described very well by many documents, analyzed. It is in the shortest term, it is a declared war against humanism, humanity, and nature. It plans to replace natural with synthetic. It is a very precisely elaborated plan to establish full spectrum dominance, meaning that the human beings will be changed into some kind of ants being controlled by computer power and monitored. And this is, we've seen a lot of science fiction, and we should understand the science fiction as a programming tool. So this is clearly ideologically based, eugenics based world philosophy. It started to develop harshly with a Rome document on sustainability, on limits to growth, Club of Rome, and so on, and then elaborated in the following decades through the United Nations. And United Nations are being converted simply to the tool of corporate strategies. And all national states are just a theater. So Agenda 2030 means the end of natural world and humanity as we know it. And I think there is a lot of analysis and on the script and description of it. I mean, it's really no secret. And of course, I do not think, Regis, that people around the world will will be ready to study all the nitty-gritty of this thing, the entities who should be studying it are the groups of national patriotic experts, some sort of modern avant-garde, people with knowledge who should elaborate the analysis and the plans for each individual nation, how to organize for defense and liberations. So we should not wait for the masses of the people who are intensively hypnotized, conditioned, tortured in many different ways, from hard torturing, killing, poisoning, to soft torturing, nudging, and so on. There are billions and billions invested in all kinds of tools to manipulate people. But we have enough intelligent people with enough knowledge to elaborate national plans. Globalism has to be crushed by cutting the tentacles which are financing it from the level of national states. We should not forget that all the value there is in the world is created only by the people. No value in the world is created by the billionaires and stock exchanges and financial speculator. They are just appropriating it, inflating it, and misusing it. So we need a paradigm change, and that's why you are doing a great job. But unfortunately, others are not following with such open approach to the question of what is really going on, and people are getting bamboozled. Then who should we vote now, for Trump or for Biden or for Crypto Bobby or for, even I must say, regarding American election, Dr. Jill Stein is a great disappointment. Although as a personality, I still respect her very much, but actually she, with her discussion with Jeffrey Sachs, she has shown that he has no clue about what is really going on and what is nature and what is synthetic, unfortunately. So all politics and all NGOs are instrumentalized by the globalist powers, and it is up to us, a few free spirits, to try to survive, and then slowly create some circles of people who will then be able to explain to their citizens in their countries what is really going on, where it's leading, and what we should do.
Well, you very clearly described what is going on, but I want to dig a little bit deeper. Both Russia and China renewed their commitment to the World Health Organization, and coming up this weekend, the World Health Organization is prepared to issue a declaration whereby, in the event of another pandemic or health crisis, they will have total control of all countries in the world. Help me understand this love affair with the World Health Organization after what we've just been through in 2020 in the last 2 years.
It's only a question when the people are going to open their eyes and to stop ignoring the obvious. The obvious thing is that there is a superpower above national states who are controlling different centers of power. One of them, United Nations, World Bank, and World Health Organization. And supporting the World Health Organization treaty means treason against own people. I can't be more clear than that. So every statesman that supports World Health Organization and WHO Treaty is committing a treason against his own nation who has elected him.
Wow, that's pretty blunt. With a few minutes that we have left, Blaz, you're an economist, very well-known economist. You're a former politician. You're an author. You've done a great deal of work in this area. One of the things that frightens me, and I'm not an economist, I'm just a simple human being who likes to have money, cash in my hand. And I'm hearing about digital currencies. They're moving rapidly in this direction in Russia. China is already there. Am I wrong to not want to have all of my money on a digital credit card or bank and not be able to pay for dinner tonight? I went out to dinner tonight. I paid with money, cash. I didn't want to pay with a card. I have one, but I only use my card to get on public transport here. Boom. Click. It's fast and easy. Everybody's using it. What about digital currencies?
Yeah, well, this is one of the very typical tricks of technocracy. I have also personally been using credit cards a lot through decades, but now I'm like you. I'm trying to use as much cash as possible, and a lot of people in my country are doing so. There was also a very strong initiative, and people, I think, when I look at the situation in shops and generally, people are using cash a lot. But this is just symbolic. This is a kind of voting against the digital transformation. At the end, we have to understand, that's why I have listed a number of categories which should be understood properly, from religion to wars to technology. Now, technology, of course, can always be used in different ways. We could not live without fire, but fire was used to torch witches, or can be used for torture, or even electricity, or any technology practically can be used in different ways. So first thing is that technology should be used to support life. And I had a discussion maybe 10 years ago with one of the scientists here in Slovenia, who was a representative of Slovenia in Club of Rome. And after a second meeting, I told him, I don't think it makes any sense for us to discuss things like blockchain and different technical solutions anymore, because you, dear sir, you would be ready to see all Slovenians killed just to have Slovenia digitalized. And he couldn't say no. So what I try to say is technology should be subordinated to life, but it can never be done so as long as we live in neoclassical political economy paradigm, where concentrated power, political power, comes from artificially created concentration of purchasing power. Like we haven't mentioned on your show so far, but as long as United States have a mechanism like Citizens United, there is no chance for democracy in United States. So as long as national states will not serve their citizens, all technologies, not only digital money, all technologies are going to be intensively used against the people. Unfortunately, it is so. And that's why I often say, please stop ignoring the obvious. Look, the skies of all the world, also Russia, I hear, are covered with sprays from chemtrails. People are getting sick, and the globalists are now creating new pandemics, new viruses, so-called. No, we are being poisoned by technology. So technology must be subordinated to the interests of quality of life. And this can only be achieved through reinvigorating sovereign national states, respecting their constitutions. So, Regis, after objective analysis, there is a real challenge ahead of us to incorporate all our well-meaning findings into written documents stating clearly what we, the people living here and now, want and what we don't want. Humanity has gone through glorious and often tragic paths to develop a solution. It is called a constitution of a sovereign, democratic, republic, national state. Some constitutions today are better, some are worse, but none of them is meaningfully respected. We should find a way to reinforce the decision-making power of those in our societies who really create a life-supporting value. With the domination of globalism, we won't be able to do that. So to wrap up, I support the strategic alliance of Russia and China, and I hope that their citizens will also exert pressures to their democratically elected governments to abandon Agenda 2030, not to support the WHO Treaty, and to reorganize cooperation of states in a different way, not as it is now in the mechanism of United States, which has proven to be fascistic. But what we really need is active international peaceful cooperation of sovereign national states serving their citizens. This is my proposal, and I'm ready to listen to different ones.
I support you 100%, Blaz. You know that. We've tried to present these views several times on this show. We will continue to do that. I thank you very much for your very clear, concise, and articulate explanation of reality, what we're facing. And to put it really simply, the way I see it, is what we are seeing with Agenda 2030, what we're seeing with technocracy, artificial intelligence, digital everything, is the dehumanization of we human beings. It is denying our basic humanity. And if we are not paying attention, and if we cannot act on the things that you have mentioned tonight, we are doomed to lose what makes us human.
That's it, yeah.
At the hands of the globalists, at the hands of the neoliberals, at the hands of the technocrats. So, Blaz, thank you so much. We've got to keep talking about this, Blaz. You know that as well as I do. And tonight is not the end of the conversation.
Thank you, Regis. Thank you very much. Down with globalism, and long live people and nature.